War. It's a small word, but there's an immense weight behind it. A stain on the world's history that seems to keep reappearing and spreading, no matter how much time passes or how heavily we try to wash ourselves of it. It makes sense that it would find its way into games, just like it made its way into books, movies, and comics. The original Call of Duty was released on October 29th, 2003. Built on the same engine used for Quake 3 Arena, ID Tech 3, it broke the mold in terms of gameplay and in the way war was presented. It was also subject to the first stages of becoming actionized in games. And that's a process that can easily be traced forward to the shooters of the modern day. A process that progressively trivialized many facets of one of the darkest kinds of acts humans have and will ever commit. It's an honest shame that something so grim has become so normalized and widespread in entertainment media. What's more, even though I find it disturbing, I have to admit that I find a number of shooters entertaining and that even the most basic and mainstream of war games can be kind of fun. I play these games and I'm not at all actively disgusted by it. The more I think about it, the more I can understand why it's like this. It's pretty easy to see not only why shooters are so popular, but also why wars, both fictional and real, are the easiest settings to use. It's easy to shape a conflict. Anger, or even just plain old violence, are so embedded in humanity's history that it's something everyone is familiar with. Your battle can be set on Earth or on a far-off world. No matter the location or time, the malleability of war is undeniable. This blends well with the fact that fighting provides the player with an easy-to-grasp, straightforward way to solve their problems. Shooters, not even just those set in a war, have become more and more about how badass the player can be, what odds they can overcome. It's this ever-growing disparity between what's possible in reality and what's possible in fiction. It's gotten to the point where some situations players get thrust into are hard to tell apart from satire. Despite its historical inaccuracies, Battlefield 1 is the first game in a long time to even partially go against the trend and find mainstream critical success. The last one I can really remember was Spec-ops The Line. See, Battlefield isn't about how the player can single-handedly annihilate battalions of enemy soldiers and disarm the world-ending MacGuffin. The presentation of the risks and stories of soldiers throughout the game's single-player campaign are very real, and there's this real weight to the conflict that the player engages in. While not all the game's missions presented subject matter as grim and dark as they could/should, the most memorable of the stories you play through lean towards the darker side of presentation, oozing tension and atmosphere and details that drive home the reality behind the game's legends. You are not an unstoppable machine. You die quickly and sometimes without warning. Battlefield doesn't shy away from showing you the darker, more depressing sides of war in its best missions. The tales you play through don't always have happy endings, and about half the missions actively encourage you to play stealthily, because if you don't, you're kinda screwed. The prologue that the game drops you right into the first time you start it up plops you into the boots of one of the Harlem Hellfighters. You fight the oncoming horde as best you can, but inevitably, you die. Your character's birth year and death year show up on the screen, revealing just how young they were, and then you get plopped into another character only for this to repeat as you die over and over again. It's brutal and it's unforgiving. This is a segment that shook me, and it stuck with me. In all honesty, it's the reason I decided to write this piece. Shortly after that, you go into another segment that is just as soaked with very real, very dark imagery. People running for their lives and falling, the ally line breaking as you and your tank run through to try and push the Germans back. All around you, Germans that have given it up are just walking away or laying down instead of running. All of this is in a muddied and burned war zone. Battlefield's tonal success mainly comes down to the writing and a constant handle and grip on the realities of war and the situations the characters have put through during its stories. This makes the events believable, and then things like graphical detail and fantastic, intense sound design come into play to drive the points and atmosphere home. Yes, there are a number of things wrong with Battlefield 1. Many of the weapons the player uses were either flat out unavailable for widespread use during the war, or they were so unreliable reliable that they were just scrapped. The Friends in High Places campaign glorifies someone that's essentially a war criminal, and Avanti Savoia, the same story that I praised earlier for its presentation, is the most guilty of any game's missions of making the player a one-man tank, dressed in a full suit of armor and wading through gunfire like it's nothing. And yeah, there are games that better present a truly mature image of war. Games without any kind of one-man badassery. Red Orchestra, Verdun, or even Valiant Hearts, just to name a few. But they're not really all AAA games with immense marketing budgets, and they didn't find near as much critical success as Battlefield 1. That's what sets this game apart and what makes this topic worth discussing. Battlefield 1 could, and honestly should, be used as a turning point for AAA games that look to war and conflict for their subject matter. If a game can find mainstream success showing something even close to a facsimile of the reality behind its tragic building blocks, then there's no reason for the industry to continue being juvenile and gung-ho about action, conflict, and the reasons that these things happen. Battlefield 1 is not the be-all, end-all, most grown-up war game of all time. But you know what? It's a step in the right direction. What do you think about war's presentation in games or entertainment media in general? Think we still have a long way to go? Let me know down in the comments. Now, thanks for joining me for this video. I hope you enjoyed, or at least got to thinking about this kind of stuff. If you did, remember to do the YouTube stuff and share this thing around. I'll see you next time. Bye!